Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of DC Stargirl. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So first and foremost, I guess I should talk about the sad news that we got earlier this week that sadly the CW has canceled Stargirl, so there will not be a season 4. I recorded a Bring It Back, so I'll, now be going up Friday, so I'll go into it more there. There is some silver lining to the situation about, like, the creators were able to know that, like, a couple months ago, so this season has kind of been written and designed in a way to kind of give it a somewhat, proper closing. So like I said, I talk about that more and just all my feelings about all that and just like the bigger discussion about like a lot of cancellations and stuff kind of got wrapped up in that video. But yeah, that's going up Friday, but I figured at the top I'd talk about that. So I found that out, what was it, probably Monday, roughly speaking, when the news originally dropped or something like that. So I figured I'd go ahead and kind of talk about that at the top there. Like I said, I go into it a little more depth in my video that's going up Friday. So be on the lookout for that if you want to hear more about everything and just curious about my feelings in totality. But I mean, if you probably already know in general how I probably feel about it. But either way, jumping into the episode itself, obviously a lot of this episode circles around specifically Cameron's grandparents, which I thought was kind of interesting. Well, I mean, no surprise there. I think understanding because it's so interesting because his grandmother, it seems like she's a little more like Jordan. It is a situation of like, she's grieving so much and she couldn't let go of her grief. It turned into anger, and that's all she kind of has right now because she's like lashing out because she wants. Would she push this hard if Jordan was still alive? Because Jordan never really pushed Cameron down this route, but it's like, right, our son, our baby boy is gone. The fact of the matter is Cameron's all they have left of their son. And for her, it's like, right, the people who are responsible, my son was trying to do good. And I think it probably just has to deal with a larger issue because of what she was looking at in that book. I don't know if that was what I think it was. I mean, I didn't get a good look at it. It looked like in the picture it was like a burning wood or something. So I don't know if I was like, was that something World War II related? Like I was like, is that some like Nazi stuff that they had to deal with? I don't know if that's what that conversation was kind of being had there. So like, it's like, right, we came from a tragic background. We wanted, the world is so evil, and what Jordan was going to do was going to turn the world into a better place, So I think it's a culmination of so much, and for her, Cameron focusing so much on his art, it's like, no, like, that's like, no, we have no time for like love and art, especially him being in love with the woman who helped, kill Jordan in their eyes, so it's like, no, this has got to be, he's got to focus on his mission. He's got to carry on Jordan's will because it's kind of carrying on their will. It's just because they feel like if Cameron isn't ready, he won't be strong enough to defend himself when the time comes that he'll be killed like his father. I think that's what ended up really sparked with them. And I think that's kind of a driving force because even Cameron's grandfather, Sophus, is kind of like, he doesn't have the same anger in him like Lily did. I mean, to the point, Lily ended up killing Cameron's teacher because for her it's like, oh, shut up, like, don't talk about my family, like, it's like, well, he has no business talking about our family, now he's dead. It's like, that teacher meant a lot to your son, and for you just to kind of kill him like that so callously just because she was just going, like, it's been bubbling ever since Jordan died, and I think it's just gotten worse and worse over time. So, and once again, I mean, that's just how Jordan became. So I think it's just sadly history repeated. I mean, I guess that kind of had to, it's just, I guess, in fact, Jordan probably repeated history with Jordan, but now it's like kind of happening yet again because now it's happening in inverse because it's happening to his parents. But then there's also the situation where now it's kind of happening to his son. So there's complicated layers to all of that. And especially after a lot of clarity that both Pat and Courtney got after the events of the last 2 episodes. Courtney and Yolanda make up, and it's just like, right, considering everything that's going on, it's just kind of like, right, I'm sorry, and I'm sorry too, and it's like, it's like, right, Courtney knew like things were bad between Yolanda and her parents, never thought things would get to this point. So it's like, maybe you should share this side of things. But for her, it's like, no, like, and and that line hit super hard where she's like, I can't trust them. It's like, it's the sad thing that like, they want you to trust them, but it should go both ways. It ends up being that complicated dynamic. Obviously, I'm team Yolanda all the way. Like, her parents, once again, they treat her like the bad guy when she was the one that was wronged. She wasn't in the wrong. She was wrong. But for whatever reason, they like put it on her so much unnecessarily. And so it is this interesting thing of like, oh, they want her to trust. It's like, no, a child should be able to trust their parents. Like, right, the parent's going to know better and stuff like that. But also in some cases, sometimes, what was that line that was kind of like, I was watching something, I don't remember what it was, but it was basically this line of, oh yeah, it was in the Midnight Club. It was a line basically like, just because you love someone doesn't mean they can't be wrong. It's that kind of situation. She's entitled to love her parents, but also kind of be like, not like them for them like being as control. Because that's why she doesn't want to tell them. It's like, if I tell them, they're just going to have more ammunition to control me. But she also points out, it's not just my secret. This is yours. This is Beth. This is Rick. And I can't trust that they won't, because what do? Like, my situation being what it is, obviously they immediately ran to the church and once again, they kind of talk about her behind her back. So it's like, it's understandable why she doesn't want to share this important part of her life, because they want to claim they can't trust her. It's like, no, I can't trust you, So I'm interested to see that. With everything being what it is with the stated show, I am curious in the long run if they will find some middle ground going forward. Because I think going forward, Beth is going to be able to find that middle ground with her parents. But whether or not Yolanda's going to be able to do that, only time will tell. But and obviously Courtney sits down with Yolanda, Beth, and Rick, and she apologizes to everyone, but also she wants to tell Cameron everything, because it is a situation of he deserves to know. I mean, it's going to be a hard pill to swallow considering how much, obviously, like, his dad was the only parent he had left after losing his mom years ago, and also, like, he idolized his dad so much. He believed his dad was a good guy, and it's like, you take that from him. That was the whole point Sydney made a couple episodes back. Like, you don't want to be the one, like, we as people with complicated dads, like, you don't want to kind of like put Cameron in that situation too, but he deserves to know the truth about everything, because it's like, right, she cares for him, a lot, and it's like a relationship shouldn't like begin with like a whole bunch of lies. She wanted to tell him the truth about everything, being Stargirl, about who his dad was, they had to stop his dad, because I mean, let's not mince words, Jordan was a murdering person. Like, he murdered that kid, one of his own allies' sons for the pretty early on in the show. Plus, let's not forget, he helped kill the JSA, so he's not like a good person. He's murdered people. It's not like no, he's murdered a handful of people. So it is that situation of he wasn't a good guy. So, I mean, does that soften that blow any? I don't know, especially considering, once again, his dad is the foundation of a lot of who he is. Plus, it's been the foundation of how Courtney's been able to help him control his powers. It's kind of focusing on that love. And it's like, you kind of take away a little of that control. And I think you could definitely see Cameron spiraling. I mean, saw it this episode, but that potentially could get worse later on, but we'll have to wait and see. Rick in particular had the biggest reservation, but then even Yolanda's like, yeah, but we were like, people can change, like, people aren't, like, things aren't so black and white. She's like, I was wrong about Sydney. I mean, not completely wrong, but I was a little bit wrong. I was so certain she was a killer. Turned out she wasn't, and I thought she was a bad guy. It's like everything she was doing was trying to cure herself so she didn't end up like her dad. Like, because she didn't talk about it a lot, but she did try to say, like, right, Courtney did say, like, Cindy isn't her dad. In fact, she hates her dad for what he did to her, and, like, she saw firsthand, like that treatment. She was more of an experiment than a daughter to him, so that's when you kind of get into some of that. So they didn't really get to experience that, so they don't have that soft spot for Cindy like Courtney does. She's a little more sympathetic in that regard. Not empathetic, sympathetic in that regard when it comes to Cindy. But Rick says this line where he's like, I got your backs no matter what. He's like, I'm warning you guys to be careful. I'm going to be the first one to tell you, like, don't come to me when I tell you, I warned you, but I got your back. I got all your backs because you guys are my family. It's like, for Rick, it's like, they are all he has. I mean, considering like he had lost his mom and dad a long time ago, plus his uncle wasn't the greatest person either. And now he's gone. It's like, right, the only family he has is it. So for him, it's like, I will protect you. But the problem is because he's gone, our man 24 hours a day now, it is that situation of it's starting to affect him mentally, even to the point he gets a headache later on. Because it seems like currently Beth's the only one that knows he goes our man. Having such an effect on it is basically contorting his desire to protect the people he cares about most and corrupting it by him getting consumed with it. It turns that good notion into something twisted. Like I said, the notion of wanting to protect the people he cares about, he goes a little overboard because it gets corrupted. So that's kind of an interesting development. Now we'll kind of put a pin in that and kind of circle back around with some other developments in the episode. Pat ended up talking to Barbara about everything that's going on with Mike's mom. Obviously, it's like, we get a little bit more like into it about everything. So we find out like, obviously they split, and at the time, Pat didn't know about his Maggie being pregnant with Mike, but they did have shared custody for a while, but eventually she left him out in a shelter because she was like, she had gotten arrested for possession, and when it came down to getting custody, she didn't put up much of a fight. I mean, cause we don't know from her perspective, it might have been a situation of like, she didn't feel like she was, because it might be a thing of she might not have felt like she was fit. Cause we only got like one instance of like one scene when Sylvester was looking for Pat last season, like making his way to Blue Valley. Like he stopped by and met like Mike's mom. That's all the only time, but she seemed good enough from where we saw. But it probably is a thing of she probably like thought like, oh, she probably beat herself up and was like, right, I shouldn't be in Mike's life because of just everything I'm dealing with. Like she's probably on a better path now, but that could be the route it goes. Not unless because I could definitely see this taking, we haven't seen the sequel, so we don't know how much that might play into the sequel, but, kind of a similar thing with, Billy and Shazam, DC and everything, so, I could compare and contrast, but like Billy, had everything with like his biological mom and everything, so it could be a complicated thing, kind of similar, like how things played out for Billy. That could be how things end up ultimately playing out for Mike, because Pat always wondered, because eventually Mike did initially ask like, oh, like, can I see my mom? But he kept saying no, and he never told Mike why. He's like, to the point, eventually Mike just stopped asking, and now he's wondering if I did him a disservice in the long run. Which, I mean, it's like talking to Barbara is like, of course she understands first and foremost. She's like, she thinks that when Courtney finally met her dad was that last season or was it, that was season 1, wasn't it? I don't remember. I think that was season 1, maybe. It might have even been season 2. I don't remember. When she finally met her dad, it was a situation of, Barbara blamed herself because she's like, I might have done more harm to get, like, I blame myself because if I had probably been a little more honest with Courtney about who her dad was, that blow would have been a little more softened. But she idolized, like, she thought, like, she kind of eventually recognized her dad for the scumbag he is. And it was like, that was a hard pill to swallow. And it's like, she kind of feels like it is, but she thinks in the long run, it was closure for, Courtney, and Courtney grew because of it. And she thinks Mike could do the same thing. He's like, I don't know. And she's like, you do know. It's like, yeah, I didn't even think about that last episode, but it's like, yeah, if anyone would understand the complicated thing about, the parent that's not in your child's life and how much of an impact that has, she understands that. She would understand that more so than anything with her relationship and just who, Courtney's dad was. But I don't think it's going to be a 1-to-1. Like, I think we don't know. Like, given the opportunity, we don't know if she would try to make more of an attempt to be in his life because she's in a better place in her life now. So So ultimately, Pat is looking into it later, and Crusher's there being like, hey, we could talk this out. And I think that is a beautiful parallel, especially with Paula's like, let me teach you, Barbara, how to like destroy a guy's spleen or something. It's like, I don't know, violence isn't really my thing. Well, think of the self-defense. She's like, this isn't really me, but thanks, Paula, you're a really good friend. And she was like, wait, what? It's like, what is this? Like, no one's ever described me that before. She's like, that can't be true. And it's like, for Paula, I think it is the first time she's ever made an actual friend. And I love that. I think we didn't get it in the episode, but Pat probably opened up to Crusher about everything. I thought that was kind of beautiful. I do like that. It's like, yeah, despite everything, I think those are going to become your besties. I love that. Crusher and Pat already had an interesting relationship to begin with before. Like, it's like, oh yeah, you're a supervillain, I'm me. They always had an interesting relationship, but even more now that it's all out in the open and stuff like that. So I thought that, I think that's such a beautiful, like, that beautiful friendship kind of forming there. Another element to the episode, because this was, it was all about that conversation of Pat feeling like he was following in his father's footsteps, but it's like, no. Like, Barbara was like, you're not following in his footsteps. Mike is following in your footsteps. And that's why he's grown to be the smart, kind kid that he is, is because of your positive influence and who you are. So Mike and Jakeem are trying to help out with the Cindy situation. Yes, it's because they're worried about Cindy, but also it's like, well, Jakeem, even Thunderbolt points this out. I was like, yeah, you're super into this girl, even to the point where they're going through her stuff. It's like, yeah, I get it. You're trying to like use this as an excuse to find Cindy because it's like, well, to be fair, it's like, right, she's in trouble, but also because you like her, this could be classified as stalking. I'm like, that's true. So they ended up, tracking her down to one of the labs her dad had, but it's on the farm, and you're like, yeah, why would he pick? It's like, well, it is such an isolated place. They didn't see it, but we as the audience did, that there's a dead body in there, and then later on, they get attacked by what almost looked like a giant gorilla, and I don't know if that's that other, oh god, I don't remember its name. It's a gorilla from Gorilla City in The Flash, because it was from Earth 2. Because it was introduced on Earth. I don't think what is that gorilla's name? I'm blanking on his name now, but it's like, funny enough, he was voiced by Keith David. That's funny. I forgot about that till just now. It's like, yeah, I don't think that's the same gorilla, but he's talking to, so he might, it's not Grodd, but it's a gorilla, because it's like Grodd and him actually duked it out in season 2. But he was like the head of like the Gorilla City, but like I said, he was on the original Earth 2, so I don't know if this is supposed to be this new Earth 2's version of that. Or maybe like he was created as a byproduct of like Dragon King's experiments or something like that. So Thunderbolt, Jakeem, and Mike found themselves in quite a complicated situation. I'm assuming Cindy might be there, or maybe she was there, or maybe she's investigating the place like they are. Either way. So maybe they will eventually run into Cindy there. So it's going to be interesting to see where that goes. But things really, circling everything back, things really hit the fan when Courtney tried to tell Cameron the truth, and it turned into an all-out brawl because Beth's goggles followed, like the trail goes back to the McKent house, and so I was like, right, it's like they don't have anything to do with this, but the question is who does. It's like, I was like, are we going to find out that Jordan is actually still alive and he pieced himself back together eventually, and then even his parents don't know he's alive? He stayed hidden because maybe he's kind of going through a little bit of a Frankenstein thing or something. Like maybe he used kind of some stuff related. I don't know. It's still super unclear who the killer is. Like, I think the next episode is going to be the reveal, because I think the next episode's title is called The Killer. So it's going to be revealed. Now, whether that's going to be like a very like final shot of the episode reveal, how that is going to play out, we'll have to wait and see. Once again, just future context, anyone that's watching this, like even if it's revealed in a promo that suggests who it is, or this is like well in advance, like, down the road, I'll stress this again, do not leave it in the comments who the killer is if you know ahead of time, or you have your, just because, for one, I don't want to know, but also I don't want to take the chance that someone might come across this review and they're watching episodes one at a time, and they get to this episode. I said this previously, I don't want that to spoil for anyone that might be watching the show in the future, so just do keep that in mind. That's all I'm saying. But either way, like I said, it turned into a knuckle brawl when like Rick burst in and went toe to toe with Cameron. I was like, yo, Cameron, like, I guess it's like just those natural instincts, because I'm like, we've never, I mean, I guess maybe you've just been secretly training, like, you can hold your, I mean, they're not, I was about to say, like, Rick is a trained enough fighter, I guess, just because of everything, but I was also about to say, like, it's like Cameron would have never had a reason to. I mean, he's able to kind of use his powers to implement some of that, but other than that was just, I mean, I don't know if you'd even say, because it's so freeform, maybe it makes it seem like, I don't know. It just, I just thought it was so interesting how they defended him. He defended himself, and it's like how Rick went toe to toe. Then, like, you had Yolanda going up against Lily, which she could hold her. You know, it might be a little older than you young whippersnappers, but her and Sophus can kind of hold their own. It's like, you know, powers compensate for a lot, but even without power, it's like, well, I guess their powers kind of give them what that oomph they need, but they can go toe to toe, hand to hand. So it's not like it was a super one-sided fight. I do like the usage of their power, just being able to like freeze the ground and like slide on it. So like the mobile like applications of the power. It's very much like the Stargirl fighting style, like how using the staff gives you a lot of like evasion and mobility when it comes and agility when it comes to Courtney's fighting style. So I think it's kind of an interesting implication there. Also, Beth's dad calls in the worst possible time, but it turns out, talking to Charles, they ended up finding out that the suit actually the suit and everything comes with like battle stuff. Like, so it's like, oh, like she gets to go into combat. Like it tells her like, right, you need to duck, dodge, roll, left hook. The cape has this like protection shield against like the frost. So it's like, yeah, like Beth got to get into her hands dirty, but also had some backup from Artemis, which was pretty dope. It's like, come on, nerd. I'm like, I love that. It was also a pretty sick move when she got Beth to grab the bat, and then she flung the bat up to kind of like get them both upright. So, but obviously, like, things were very one-sided in the fight between Cameron and Rick. Well, not really. Like, yo, your boy Cameron was like landing some blows on Rick, but it was kind of dead set even, but Rick had the advantage. He's been doing this a little bit longer than Cameron, but Cameron like went hard in the paint. Once again, just like the mobility, which the fact is he was able to use it to kind of like basically use his ice to like push himself against the wall, use his back foot to like back flip himself, and it's just like using it to kind of like almost kind of like how Jeff uses his lightning to kind of make himself float and eventually fly. Like, it's kind of similar to that, how he applied some of his ice abilities, and he came close to killing Rick. But it's like, right, these people killed your father, so now he realized, because what really set him off was like seeing Courtney hurt, but now it's like, wait, you guys are responsible for killing my dad. But it's like, right, Courtney didn't have a chance to explain everything. But his grandfather comes in and is like, please don't give into don't let your anger consume you. That hate's the same thing that consumed your father. Give into love, not hate. And he has a heart attack. But luckily, Beth, with help from her mom, was able to use the defibrillator in the glove. So it's like, right, I think maybe that's the thing going forward, that Beth and her family together are going to be, well, I mean, for one, it's nice to have their support. So they could be like her parents in the chair, I guess you could say. Like they're kind of her support, you know. I mean, just like Bruce has, event at some point, like, depending on in her story if she's Oracle at the time or not. But Barbara being kind of like the support from the Batcave, or even Alfred, or even Lucius. It could be that's who they could kind of be. They could be her Alfred and Lucius. In many different regards. So that's why I do feel like definitely when the time comes, Beth is definitely going to find that middle ground for parents, considering they helped her out in that situation. So it's like, right, together, they are Dr. Midnighter to some extent. So I think that'd be kind of interesting. But yeah, this is kind of ooh boy, like the way Cameron's looking at Courtney, and even Rick apologizing. I'm sorry, Courtney. So it's like, he let his temper get the best of him. So, but it's somewhat all out in the open, but we got to sit and talk this out. But once again, I don't think the McKents had anything to do with who the killer actually is. The fact is that it leads back here means it has the signal they following. Like, either it must be bounced off there because whoever it was saw what Rick was doing and decided, you know what, I'm going to take advantage of this, and wanted to make these two sides collide. Because it might not be Jordan. It might just be someone who wants all of them destroyed. So they're trying to push the heroes and the villains to kind of eventually collide. That might have been a setup from the beginning. So it's, well, I mean, to be fair, even if Rick hadn't done that, we've seen with, Sylvester that he easily would have, considering like him going after Crusher and Paula. So it's like, it's not like even if he was here, it's not like that situation probably would have been handled well either. It would have come to that, especially when it came to Lily. Like, her and Sylvester probably really definitely would have like gone at it. So a lot of interesting things. Obviously, I do believe this is going to be 13 like the previous season. So we've got 4 more episodes left. I'm interested to see ultimately where everything ends up taking us as we go into the final episodes of Stargirl. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, love life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.